Coming up on Arirang News. Concerns about a medical crisis rise in South Korea as interns and residents at 5 major general hospitals begin resigning en masse, protesting the expansion of medical school admissions quotas. The government orders hospitals to ban any mass leave-taking while warning of legal measures. Having forged diplomatic ties with Cuba last week, South Korea's presidential office says various cooperation is expected, particularly in key minerals for advanced technology. From tackling the low birth rate to finalizing electoral districts, clashes on key issues between the rival parties are expected as this February's extraordinary session kicked off today at the National Assembly with less than 2 months left until the general election.
Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with the hospitals in South Korea taking emergency measures as cancer surgeries are being postponed indefinitely and emergency rooms are overwhelmed. It's because trainee doctors at major general hospitals have submitted their letters of resignation as warned before walking away from their duties tomorrow, protesting the expansion of medical school admissions quotas. Our Health Ministry correspondent Choi Soo-hyung reports.
The collective action by doctors, including resignations by residents, has potentially begun in earnest, and concerns about the medical crisis are growing stronger. The Severance Hospital, located in Sinchon-dong, Seoul, is where some residents have opted to stop working starting Monday to protest the government's plan to expand medical school quotas by 2,000 per year. In the hospital, surgery schedules have already been adjusted due to emergency response systems enacted to deal with the doctor's action, such as reducing the operation of surgical suites to 50 to 60% of normal capacity. Last week, the Korean Intern Resident Association announced that all residents at these hospitals and others nationwide were scheduled to submit their resignations by Monday and will stop working after 6 a.m. on Tuesday. The number of trainee doctors in Seoul's 5 largest training hospitals is around 2,700, or over 20% of the total in Korea. They play a crucial role in emergency medical care, and should they proceed with their collective resignations, this will inevitably lead to significant gaps in patient care.
The pediatric emergency room doesn't have any space now. I'm from Incheon. Even though Incheon is not a small city, there's no pediatric emergency room. So we have to call 119 before we need to go to find out whether it's available. From a mother's perspective, there might be kids who need surgery right away. It's a bit uncomfortable because it's a matter of life and death.
Currently, there's no change in the government's stance and its refusal to accept doctors' demands and calling their collective action intolerable. The Health Ministry has warned that it could revoke doctors' license if they do not comply with return-to-work orders. The government has issued the order to 103 doctors who have refused to work, with 3 of them failing to comply. Also, all efforts will be made to minimize inconvenience for patients. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo visited the National Medical Center today at around 3 p.m. to inspect on-site countermeasures. In addition, the Seoul Metropolitan Government is running emergency rooms at 4 municipal hospitals, Seoul and Porame Medical Centers, and Dongbu and Seonam hospitals, while extending the operating hours of public health centers in 25 districts until 8 p.m. on weekdays. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Moving on. Following the diplomatic landmark last week, the presidential office here says Seoul's formal ties with Havana also hold significant economic implications. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
South Korea and Cuba's new diplomatic relations could lead to a win-win partnership in areas like energy and minerals for advanced technologies. That's according to Seoul's presidential office on Sunday in press material on the anticipated benefits of bilateral ties, which were formalized last Wednesday. Beyond the diplomatic significance of forging relations with the Latin American country, which has long held friendly relations with the North Korean regime, Seoul says a permanent mission in Havana can steadily build the foundation for greater economic cooperation, despite the current level of trade being restricted by US sanctions on Cuba. As of 2022, South Korean exports to Cuba hit some $14 million and imports roughly $7 million, mostly through third countries. The presidential office says it expects trade volume to expand through direct trade, noting that Cuba is the world's 5th largest producer of nickel and holds the 4th largest reserves of cobalt, which are both key materials needed to produce secondary batteries. It also produces marine products such as sea cucumbers and items such as luxury cigars and rum. Also, due to the Caribbean country's power generation and infrastructural needs, including telecommunications, as well as demand for household goods and electronics, there is a wide-ranging gap for Korean companies to fill. There are also prospects for expanding development assistance to Cuba and research collaborations in healthcare and the biosector with Cuba's wealth of medical experts. As much as the spread of Korean popular culture has been credited for formalizing bilateral ties, Seoul anticipates greater opportunities for exchanges in cultural events, tourism and sports, including baseball. The presidential office added that once its diplomatic presence has been established, Seoul intends to provide 24-hour consular assistance to Korean nationals in Cuba, and also seek out descendants of Korean independence activists who contributed to efforts to liberate Korea from Japan's colonization. Arirang News.
From tackling the low birth rate to finalizing electoral districts, clashes on key issues between the rival parties are expected as this February's extraordinary session kicked off today at the National Assembly with less than 2 months left until the general election. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
On Monday, South Korea's National Assembly held an opening ceremony recognizing the start of the 21st Assembly's last extraordinary session. The Speaker of the Assembly, Kim Jin-pyo, in his opening remarks said that it's time for a change.
We are in desperate need of politics that can give new hope and courage to the people. We need to create a National Assembly that overcomes the crisis and prepares for the future.
Speaker Kim said these last 3 months of the 21st Assembly are its last chance for its, quote, heyday, and vowed to do his utmost best until the very last day. He also highlighted that the Assembly and the administration should work to tackle the country's low birth rate. One way to do so, he says, is through a constitutional amendment.
If we respond to core causes of the low birth rate, such as childcare, education, and housing issues by identifying them as national tasks in the Constitution, then we will be able to gain people's trust.
Meanwhile, floor leaders of the main opposition Democratic Party and the ruling People Power Party will give speeches to the Assembly on Tuesday and Wednesday, respectively. From Thursday to Friday, the Assembly will question the government. A plenary session is scheduled for next week where the parliament will discuss pending issues. One of them, finalizing electoral districts for the upcoming election in April. With less than 2 months to go until the 22nd general election here in South Korea, fierce talks and clashes are expected between the ruling and opposition parties during this February extraordinary session. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Korea's workforce is aging amid a greater number of workers in their 70s in employment. According to Statistics Korea, on this Monday, the number of workers in their 70s rose 11.4% on-year in January to reach above 1.5 million people. Last year, almost a quarter of the population aged 70 and above were either working for more than 1 hour per week to earn income or working for a family business without pay. They were commonly found to be working in agriculture, fishery, or forestry-related jobs. In Russia, outspoken Putin critic Alexei Navalny, who made global headlines when he was poisoned with a nerve agent in 2020, was found dead last week. He died in prison where he was serving a sentence on charges of extremism. but the bruising on his body is raising suspicions about his cause of death. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
Jailed Russian opposition figure and one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's most outspoken critics, Alexei Navalny, died at the age of 47 on Friday. Navalny made global headlines in 2020 when he was poisoned with a nerve agent but survived following treatment in Germany before returning to Russia in 2021. Upon his return, he was arrested on charge of extremism and imprisoned before being sent to the IK-3 prison colony in the Yamalno-Nenets region within the Arctic Circle. Nicknamed Polar Wolf, only those accused of the very worst crimes are sent there. While the cause of death is still unclear, bruising discovered on his body has raised suspicions. Local reports say bruises were found on his head and chest at a hospital close to the prison. One medical source said that the injuries described by those who saw them appeared to be from convulsions. The source added that if a person is convulsing and others try to hold him down, bruising can appear, adding that the bruises on the chest can be a result of cardiac massage. Prison officials also said that Navalny said he felt ill before going off for a walk and collapsing. The sudden death and speculation that he had been convulsing have led some watchers to believe he was poisoned once again. The news of Navalny's death drew a forceful reaction from Western leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden, who blamed Putin, saying that what has happened to Navalny is yet more proof of Putin's brutality. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in Germany, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was on the agenda at the 60th Munich Security Conference this past weekend, with global policymakers and pundits also addressing a peace framework to halt the violence in Gaza. Lee Eun-jin reports.
Over the weekend, world leaders came together in Munich to deliberate on the world's most pressing security challenges. The annual Munich Security Conference also serves as a barometer of U.S.-European relations. On the agenda was NATO's support for Ukraine amidst Russian aggression. The discussions followed remarks from U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump last week, suggesting he would not protect countries that failed to meet the transatlantic military alliance's defense spending targets, and would even encourage Russia to attack members that were not paying their share of costs. That not only sparked fierce criticism from Western officials, but has left European leaders anxious about the $60 billion Ukraine aid package bill, which still needs approval through a congressional vote. Meanwhile, Ukrainian and Western leaders emphasized that the $60 billion aid package is vital to Kiev's forces. 2 years on from the start of Russia's invasion, Moscow said on Sunday it had taken full control of the devastated eastern Ukrainian town of Avdiivka. NATO estimated that the U.S. spent around 3.5% of its GDP on defense in 2023, and 18 of its 31 members are expected to meet the target of at least 2% of GDP this year, up from 11 in 2023. The war in Gaza was also among the top issues discussed at the 60th Munich Security Conference. Following a meeting on Friday where senior U.S., Arab, and European officials met to discuss progress on formulating a plan for post-war Gaza that would be linked to normalizing ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said there is an extraordinary opportunity in the coming months for Israel to normalize ties with its Arab neighbors, while also emphasizing the need for the creation of a Palestinian state. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
The European Commission will impose a €500 million fine on Apple for breaking antitrust laws. Now, this is according to the Financial Times this past weekend, citing sources who believe the Commission will make public the results of its antitrust probe early next month. The probe was launched after music streaming app Spotify filed a related complaint back in 2019. It claimed Apple favored its own music platform and blocked iPhone users from cheaper alternatives outside the App Store. The reported fine is expected to be one of the biggest financial penalties by the EU on a major tech firm. And in eastern Afghanistan, a landslide caused by heavy rain and snowfall has left at least 25 people dead and 8 others injured. The country's disaster ministry announced on Monday that the landslide swept the village of Nakray in the province of Nuristan on Sunday night, destroying around 20 houses. However, authorities have said that the death toll could rise as rescue efforts are being hindered by continuous snowfall. Bordering Pakistan, most of the Nuristan province is covered by mountainous forests. And here in Korea, only 2 weeks are left for those who want to see Fu Bao, the giant panda at Everland Zoo, before she's transferred to China in early April. Everland announced on Monday that Fu Bao will be available for people to come and see her until March 3rd. Afterwards, she'll undergo health checkups, quarantine, and crate training in a separate space for about a month. All cubs of pandas on lease must be sent to China for breeding once they reach sexual maturity, typically around 4 years old. Fu Bao will turn 4 in July. In other news, artificial intelligence technology has been developed to transform robots on industrial sites into smarter ones that can understand human speech. Chung Eun-ju has the details.
작업대로 이동.
The robot understands the researcher's words and starts moving.
작업 시작.
물체짓기를 시작합니다.
The robot then moves parts to the workstation and starts assembling them. It understands what people say and carries out their orders. A regular robot transforms into a smart robot when a special artificial intelligence developed by South Korean researchers is installed.
Workers unfamiliar with robots can easily use them, which can improve productivity in the manufacturing industry overall.
Commands can be given not only through voice but also through text. Individuals can program the working process in layman's terms depending on the situation without the need for experts. The artificial intelligence can create the optimal working sequence and movements tailored to the site in a virtual space.
We developed automation tech that understands commands, generates performance order and executes them simultaneously, a world first for actual application.
AI technology that can easily create speech understanding robots is currently being tested at an electronic parts factory in Cheongju. If the robot's effectiveness is confirmed, it is expected to enable scenarios where humans and robots collaborate as seen in similar scenes in movies. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Earlier this month, the South Korean Unification Ministry released a report on the reality of the North Korean economy and society based on testimonies of more than 6,000 defectors. Minister Kim Young-ho says it's K-dramas that are driving people in North Korea to want to leave the regime. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jung-sil sat down with him.
While K-dramas have fans around the world, there are also those watching in secret, in hiding in North Korea. Fans in other countries may admire the unique plots, dramatic twists, and of course the actors. But for some people in North Korea, watching K-dramas led them to a decision that could cost them their lives.
The report suggests that more than 83% of North Korean defectors watched South Korean dramas when they were in the North. When they watch South Korean dramas, they can feel that South Korean society is free and wealthy. And the reality of South Korea in these dramas is different from what the North's regime has brainwashed its people to believe.
Stairway to Heaven, My Love from the Star, and Autumn in My Heart, classics for K-drama fans, were among those frequently mentioned.
The number of defectors last year was about 3 times higher than in 2022. It was 196 people, and about half of them were the MZ generation of North Korea in their 20s and 30s. The number proves that K-dramas have a big impact on young people in the North.
The spread of K-dramas actually poses such a threat to the regime that back in 2020, Pyongyang made a stricter law that bans North Koreans from watching it. Those caught spreading K-dramas could now even face the death penalty. With the regime tightening its already tight controls, the actual lives of the residents aren't getting better. The report says 7 out of 10 people said they had not received any food rations from the state since Kim Jong-un became leader. A whopping 38.3% said they have never been to a hospital. And almost no one in North Korea has ever used the internet.
Surely, I think leader Kim Jong-un also knows the suffering of the residents, and that if this continues, the regime isn't sustainable. Where is he heading with this?
I think if the Kim Jong-un regime doesn't give up on developing nuclear and missile programs, it'll fall into a military dilemma. If the regime keeps spending its resources on nuclear and missile development, the economic hardships within North Korea will get worse. And people's feelings will be against the regime even more.
Can doubt fill the minds of North Korean people? The report says this is already happening, and the number of doubters is increasing. 56.3% of the respondents who have recently defected said they feel negative about the succession planning that keeps power within the Kim family.
What's the reason for South Korean government to let the international community know the reality of North Korean residents?
North Korea's poor human rights situation and security issues cannot be separated. So, to bring righteous changes in the North Korean society would help not just its residents, but also help bring peace on the Korean Peninsula, Northeast Asia, and for the world.
The minister added that North Korean residents would wish to reunify not with China nor Russia, but with South Korea, and that Seoul will continue to strive for reunification that guarantees peace and freedom. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Even though mild temperatures persisted throughout the day, there has been rainfall all over the country today. This rain will continue until tonight, but snow will start to fall around the East Coast. With heavy snow predicted, Yeongdong in Gangwon-do province has already issued a preliminary special warning for heavy snow. Please be thoroughly prepared to prevent any damage. As for the amount of snow, Yeongdong will receive heavy snow of more than 10 centimeters by tomorrow, and northern Gyeongsang-buk-do province is expected to receive up to 5 centimeters of snow. It will rain in the south of the Chungcheong-do provinces, and the sky will be cloudy in other areas. The temperatures will drop from tomorrow. Seoul and Daejeon will start off at 2 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will be topping out at 9 in Seoul and Gwangju, Daejeon and Daegu 8 degrees Celsius. From Wednesday night, there is a possibility of heavy snow in central inland areas, and Yeongdong is likely to have a lot of snow until late in the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Hope everyone has a good start of the week.